Okay, hello students, myself Humaira Sheikh and I am going to teach you science, 7th standard. So students, the first chapter as you know is the living world and the next part of the chapter is adaptation and classification. Now what do you mean by the living world? As everyone knows, you all are 7th standard children. There are two types of things in the world, in the universe, living things and non-living things. Living things, they have different characteristics, non-living things, their characteristic is different. Living things, as we know, we are all living things, we respire, we walk, we eat, we reproduce, we excrete, these are all characteristics of living things. And non-living things, all opposite, they cannot walk, they cannot move, they cannot respire, then they cannot reproduce, they cannot eat or drink as you know. Now about the living world, adaptation and classification. Now children, what do you mean by adaptation? There is a definition given. Gradual changes occur in the body parts. Our body parts, there are different body parts, and also in the behavior of organisms, which help them to adjust to their surroundings. Such changes are called as adaptations. Now chapter 1 is adaptation, as we have started. So what do you mean by this adaptation? It is the living world. And it is divided into two parts, adaptation and classification. So what do you mean by adaptation? Now see, as we know, we can't go and stay in Kashmir or Himalaya because our body parts will not suit to that climate. We are used to this temperature only, that is normal, not too low, not too high. We cannot go and stay in desert areas like Rajasthan because our body temperature will not suit to that place temperature. Now see, in the starting they have given, there is a variety of plants and animals found on the earth. As you know, we live on planet Earth. On earth there are variety of plants and animals, different types of plants, different types of animals. Some plants, they have colorful flowers, some plants, they do not bear flowers. Then some plants, they live in water, some grow in desert, some grow in forest. And some plants also grow in snowy region, some plants can be seen under a microscope, and some plants are very huge in size, which we call it as trees. Now same like plants, there are variety of animals also. Animals, some are microscopic, that is we have to only use a microscope to see such type of plants. They are very minute in size, and some plants, they are very huge in size. Example, can anyone give me example of huge plants? Now see, example of plants that are very huge, you know, mango, tamarind, and plants that are very minute in size, you can say algae, that you say as shewal in Marathi. Okay. Then there are unicellular, multicellular animals. Then there are vertebrates, invertebrates. All these we are studying from 4th standard onwards. Now that means this shows that this full earth is filled with variety of plants and animals. Then they have given aquatic animals, animals living in water. Then there are terrestrial animals. There is a variety. Aquatic, living in water. Terrestrial, living on land. Amphibian, living both on land and in water. This we have studied from 4th standard. Then there are reptiles which crawl. Then there are aerial animals which only fly in the air. Aquatic, water animals. Terrestrial, land animals. But amphibian animals or plants that will grow and live in water, also on land. Reptiles means crawling animals. Clear everyone? This we have studied, this is called as classification. Aerials means that live in the air. This is all about the variety of animals that we see on earth. Now they have given about snowy region plants. Now can you tell me the plants which grow in snowy region, any example? You must have seen in movies. We know pine and for example deodar. You have seen plants. See, the plants are this way and they are having like this shape. Why is their shape like this conical? You know, so that if the snow falls on these branches, the snow can easily flow down and it will not accumulate on the branches. That is why these plants growing in Kashmir and snowy region, they are having conical branches. Then can you tell me any animal that lives in desert? Desert animals, can you all tell me? So that we can start with the main part, adaptation. Now see in the textbook, you can see if your textbook is open, what do you mean by adaptation? Adaptation takes place only in living things, because living things need to adjust to the place where they go. Now for example, the people which live near the sea coast, now they are used to that climate, they are used to eat fish, for example. Now if we give them anything other things to eat, like meat we like, but they will not accept that, because they are used to staying in coastal areas, so they are used to eat fish only, because fishing is their main occupation. That is called as adaptation. Now tell me the definition of adaptation. See, gradual changes occur in the body parts. Means the body parts are there different, the changes occur in the body parts if we change place, and behavior of organisms which help them to adjust to their surroundings. That is called as adaptation. They take place over a long period of time. So you have to learn this definition now only, students, when the teaching is going on, because it is very important part of the lesson. Gradual changes means the changes occurring in the body parts and in the behavior of organisms, means how we behave, that is going to change, and how we adjust ourselves to the surroundings. Normally we have to adjust wherever we go. Now suppose we say we are not used to stay in Kashmir, but if any serious condition occurs and we have to go there for suppose working, we have to go there and adjust ourselves, because there will be no other option. So living things, they can change their behavior, they can change their way of living as they go and stay to the other place. That is called as adaptation. Now adaptation is seen in plants as well as in animals. Now in the textbook, you must have read in the lockdown period, your textbook first lesson, there is given in detail adaptation in plants also and adaptation in animals also. So adaptation in plants, the first part of adaptation in plants is, they are showing us adaptation in aquatic plants. The lesson starts with the definition of adaptation and then it goes stepwise. Adaptation in plants, first we have to see adaptation in aquatic plants. Now what do you mean by aquatic word? I told you aquatic means the plants or the animals living in water. Now animals living in water are called as aquatic animals. Example, seahorse, aquatic, fish, aquatic, all these are aquatic animals. Similarly, aquatic plants. Now can you tell me, can anyone think about the plants that are called as aquatic plants? Means the plants that live in water. The main simple normal example is lotus. Everyone knows lotus flower. It grows in water. Now what comes to your mind when we take the name of the lotus? Lotus is classified under the column aquatic plants. How is its body? How are the body parts of lotus? How is it adapted to growing in water? Now see, there are many water bodies like river, lakes, ponds, brook. There any place lotus can grow. A simple example I tell you, when we go to Sarasbagh, there is a big pond. There you can see many lotus flowers floating in that pond. That means it grows in any water body. Now how is their body? Now see, how are the roots of this plant that grows in water? Example, I have given you lotus. The roots are firmly rooted, it is called as. So roots are firmly rooted. That means the plant, aquatic plants are firmly rooted. But some aquatic plants, they are afloat. Afloat means they easily float from one place to other. They are not stuck to one place. We are talking about the plants that grow in water. The plants are firmly rooted, means how they grow in the soil in one place. That way some plants, some aquatic plants, they are firmly rooted. But some are afloat. Afloat means they can float on water, they can move from one place to other according to the currents of water. Now I tell you, some are afloat. Now about their stem. Now stems of aquatic plant are submerged. Submerged means they are partially above the surface of water, partially below the surface of water. So the word sub is used. Sub means half above, half below. Now how about the leaves and stem of these plants? Leaves and stem, they float on the surface of water. Stem and leaves, they float on surface of water. These are all, we can say, the characteristic of aquatic plants. Now what about the leaves only? Leaves are, you can say, thin and slender. Leaves are thin and slender, so that they can face the flow of water. That is why the leaves are thin and slender like a ribbon, so that they can face the currents of water, because these plants, they are growing in water. Then stem and petioles, they have a characteristic organ called as air spaces. Air spaces are there in the stem to help them to float in water. Now see, these are all the characteristics, the adaptations of aquatic plants. First I will explain to you how are the roots of these aquatic plants. Example, I have given you lotus. Lotus everyone has seen. They are having roots. Some plants, they are having roots which are firmly stuck in the soil. But some plants are afloat, means they can float from one place to other. Then the stems are submerged, means half above the water, half below the water. Then leaves and stems of this plant, they float on the surface of water. Then leaves are thin and slender like ribbon, and the air spaces in stem are there, so that they can easily float on water. This was the first part. Now this was the adaptation in aquatic plants, the first part. Now next we can see adaptation in desert plants. As you can see in the textbook, the next part is adaptation in desert plants. This I will be keeping as it is, so that we can take a small revision based on this. Now see, desert plants. You know, desert is a place where there is scarcity of water, where there is shortage of water. In that place, all the plants which we see around us cannot grow. Scarcity of water means that there is a shortage of water. All plants are not suitable to that environment. So one example of plant that grows in desert is cactus. Everyone knows cactus plant. It doesn't have leaves. It is having a thick part, and there are thorns, like a needle like part on it you can see, and there are like oval shaped leaves. You can see in the textbook they have given the diagram. Cactus like this it is, then the other things are attached to it like this, and they are having thorns on it. You can't see any stem properly, any leaf properly on the cactus. Cactus is a plant growing in the desert where there is scarcity of water. Now this is the plant of cactus. It is either leafless, or if leaves are there, the leaves are having thorns on it, or the leaves are having small needles or thorns, so that these thorns, they lose very little water by evaporation. So some are leafless, and if leaves are present, then they are having small needle like part, or they are having thorns, so that very little water is lost by evaporation. First, only in desert there is shortage of water. Everyone knows a desert place. So if they lose more water, then they will die very early. So they are having thorns, so that very little water is lost by evaporation. The next characteristic of this desert plant is, who stores food and water then? When they are having body parts not like normal plants, they are having different body parts. So stem, it stores food and water. In desert plants, you can see in the textbook, stem stores food and water. So the stem of desert plant is fleshy, because it stores food and water. And there are no leaves. So but they have to perform photosynthesis. So stem only performs. This is the main point of desert plants. Stem performs photosynthesis. Now what is photosynthesis? Photosynthesis is the process of preparation of food in plants. It is done in the presence of sunlight and carbon dioxide and nutrients from the soil. Photosynthesis means preparation of food in plants. So this also plant will need food. So who will prepare food for it? Cactus plant. Stem will perform photosynthesis because leaves are absent. There are no leaves. So photosynthesis process is carried out by stem. Now next characteristic of desert plants, the roots go deep in the soil. The roots spread very deeply in the soil in search of water. Roots spread deeply across the soil. Because there is shortage of water, they have to search for water. That is why. Now what is adaptation of aquatic plants, plants living in water, adaptation of desert plants, plants growing in the desert. Now next, according to the textbook, we have to see plants growing in the snowy region. That I have taken example in the starting only. Snowy region plant, pine and deodar, I told you an example. Adaptation of snowy region plants. As you know the example, pine and deodar, there are no more characteristic for this, just the characteristic is branches are conical in shape, branches are conical, so that the snow will not accumulate. Snow falls down easily, and then they are having thick bark. Bark of these desert plants is thick because the climate will be very cold. Bark is thick to withstand this cold, to withstand the cold temperature. Okay, clear everyone, students? I hope you all are paying attention and listening to me. To withstand this cold temperature, bark is thick, and then nothing more. These are only the two adaptations of snowy region plants. Then the next is, according to your textbook, adaptation of forest plants. Now this is very simple, forest plants. See students, the plants growing in the forest, we called it as jungli jhad. So the trees in the forest grow very tall. You must have seen, if you go across the forest, if you go anywhere and you come across a forest, trees are very tall in the forest. Why? So that each and every tree tries to get sunlight. Every tree wants sunlight. So there is a competition among these plants. If they are short in height, if the next plant around it, next tree next to it is very tall, then it will not get sunlight. So there is a competition among these trees. So the height of these trees is very tall to get the sunlight. So there is a competition among these plants. And the last among the plants is adaptation of grassland plants. Grassland means grasses, gavat. Grassland plants, students, this is very simple, no more characteristics like the aquatic and desert plants. See, in grassland plants, roots are fibrous to prevent soil erosion. Fibrous roots. So that there is no soil erosion. So what is soil erosion? Soil erosion means the roots of the trees, they hold the soil firmly. Roots of the trees, they hold the soil firmly so that the soil is not flown away by the strong winds of water, or it will not fly away with the air. So that is called as soil erosion. Fibrous roots to prevent soil erosion. And one more thing is, animals can hide themselves among the grasses. Animals can hide themselves among the grasses. Okay students, now my lecture gets over here. We will continue in the next lecture all these parts, and I hope you will read and come what the characteristics I have told you. So We have seen adaptation. Definition of adaptation is very important, which you are going to learn. You are going to note down these points first and learn according to this only, so that you will have a short summary of it. Adaptation of aquatic plants, adaptation of desert plants, adaptation of plants growing in snowy region, adaptation of plants growing in the forest, adaptation of plants that is called as grassland plant, means only the grasses. Adaptation means a habit where you can stay comfortably. So thank you. We'll meet in the next lecture. Thank you so much.